Let's get something clear. Your AI strategy isn't just a tech decision, it's a people decision. And if your team doesn't trust it or trust you to guide the changes, it's never going to stick. Welcome to Process of Elimination. I'm Justin L. Brown.
And I'm Ryan Edwards.
And today we're getting into the real work behind AI implementation, leading humans through change without breaking what makes teams work in the first place.
Sounds good.
Sounds about right?
I mean, no one likes to be broken.
Thank you for being here. I feel like it's been a little bit.
It has been. There's been a lot happened in the last 2 weeks in someone's life.
A lot has happened. No one can tell.
No.
But a lot has happened.
You know what they say? If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it.
You're right. I'm glad she liked it. So Ryan, let's start here. What is the first cultural breakdown you tend to see when teams try to bring in AI on their day-to-day use?
I mean, the breakdown happens in two different areas. One is that if there already isn't a culture in the company of openness, of having conversations, of being willing to explore and adapt, a culture, let's just call it what is a culture of transformation already in the company, then you have a stumbling block. Because without that culture, then people don't have the comfort to come to their managers or to come to their bosses or to say, hey, look, I know this is the way that you wanted this done, you told me to do it, but here's some other ways that works better for me and the team. So you have to have that culture in place. Mm-hmm. The second culture you have in place is people have to be, you have to share your goals and your values. If you're not sharing the goals and the values, and not everybody sees the broader picture, which is at larger organizations as a common problem, then you have no way of knowing if what you're doing at your level, let's say you're a mid-level manager, you have no idea if what you're doing ladders up to the broader vision, or if what you're doing is going to hurt that broader vision, or if you're told, yes, this innovation, this way to use AI is great, but we're going to use it in this less efficient way for you. You don't know why, because it's more efficient at the broader scale. So you have to have those two cultural items. You have to have a culture of transformation, of innovation, and you have to have a culture of sharing your values, your visions, and your goals. If not, then what you have to do is you have to find a way to change that or to create that. Often that's done by bringing in a third party in that situation where now you're bringing in somebody you're in essence borrowing that culture. You're bringing in a third party and you're saying you're in charge of creating this culture of vision or a culture of transformation for the period that you're there. And that's often very accepted because now you've created a specific role for that and you've placed the authority into that role. And now you have the ability to work outside of the org structure and make those changes. Well, I gave a really long answer, didn't I?
You did, but it was very thorough. And you hit a lot of points in there. One of them being that, tools are the easy part, but when it comes to culture, which is essentially another tool, that tool belt might benefit from a third party coming in, or that third party coming in is going to be helpful because now you're not blinded by your own tactics that you've been implementing the entire time, good or bad, or everything in between. So I definitely resonate with that answer that you want to have first really fresh lenses to look at the culture. And then from there, you'll be able to decide what your next steps could potentially be.
Yeah, there's in essence three things you need. Like you said, you need to have the lens so you can be objective. You need to have at least a decent amount of speed. Because if you don't have the speed, and I've seen this a million times, you make changes that are irrelevant by the time they go into effect, and then you have to have the authority to say these changes are going to happen. And yeah, often those authorities are brought in outside only because that's the easiest way to do it.
Why do you think fear is so easily triggered when it comes to AI? Even if teams are actually doing pretty well, there is usually like a bit of a anxiety that comes with an implementation of an AI tool or AI workflow when it comes to the work environment.
We live in a world right now where it's much easier to lead with fear
Yeah.
than lead with mentorship. That's just a fact of the world right now. Look at, for example, there's a famous thing that happened recently. Shopify sent out a memo to all the mid-managers to look at all the reports and justify the need for a person to do the job. Now, you could argue that all they're doing is doing an audit. That's really all they're doing. There's 100 ways to approach that audit that, instead of making everybody afraid that their job is trying to be gutted and replaced, could make people say, okay, we're in a safe spot. Let's have a conversation about what it really is, how we can use AI to be more efficient. But it's that approach. Prove to me that people's jobs are valuable and can't be done with AI. And here's what will always happen in that scenario, and we're starting to see this happen right now. People will put fear into a person's life. They're not going to. They're going to pull in and they're going to respond in what's the best way for them personally, not for the team, not for the company, not for the organization, but them purposely. They're going to give answers that they think help them. They're not going to give you the truthful answer because you've already created a culture that does not value the truth. You've created a culture that is based on fear.
Yeah.
Fear does not breed truth.
Yeah.
So you've created those. So now you have people fearing AI. You have people not being truthful about AI. You have people who don't want AI. So yeah, now you're going to have a lot of pushback. Now you're going to have the death of innovation, the death of transformation, because people are going to put up all kinds of blockers. When if they just change that memo a little bit and they just said, look, AI is coming. We want to use AI in a way to help everybody do their jobs better, it would have been a completely different scenario with the exact same ask.
Absolutely. Asking someone to write out their SOP. I remember I was at a job and I knew layoffs was happening when they came to me and said, could you do me a favor and just list out everything that you do on a daily and project-wise basis? And I was like, oh, yeah, this is about to be a wrap pretty soon because they're going to take this playbook and give it to somebody else. And they ended up doing that. And it didn't feel that great to sit down and quantify my job in a couple documents and then see someone else come in. But when you come from the perspective you were just saying, it's more in line with how can we actually help make your job more efficient through certain tools, then you might have a little more buy-in.
Right. AI is there to help people work better.
Yes.
And amplify what people can do. AI is not really intended to replace people. It's there to amplify people. And the problem is you have this hype cycle that's been going on for 3 years. AI is going to replace 95% of marketing jobs. That didn't happen. Somebody just last week came out and said, the head of Anthropic came out and said, AI is going to replace over half of entry-level jobs. Have you ever worked with a person at the entry level? Do you know what their jobs are like? No, their jobs are not technically demanding usually, and they don't require high amounts of training, but they require high amounts of navigating landscapes, lateral thinking. I've seen companies who have tried to replace those entry-level jobs with AI, and they end up rehiring people, and it ends up costing them more money because AI is good at performing tasks. AI is not good at performing this lateral thinking across a company and doing abstract problem solving.
It's like having a really great program that is great to have, but then if you want someone that can move from one space to another space, move from getting everybody coffee to making sure that these invites go out to every little thing that goes into a junior level employment, it's very difficult to replace that with an AI module.
Right. And I'll just add to that, AI is really great at good doing A, then B, then C, then D, then E. In that order, AI is great at it. And I get AI to do that all day long. But we need to go from A to D to B to F, which is often what you have to do. That's creative problem solving. That's nonlinear thinking. That's a person, but that should be a person that is using AI to help them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that actually goes into my next question. What does it actually look like to prepare a team culturally before a tech rollout?
Have a point of view. Be open about the point of view. Have the discussion. Here's how our company is approaching AI, and here's the point of the tech rollout, and involve people in it. And look, I've worked on projects where we've done workflows and we've done transformations and we've implemented all kinds of like CRM workflows before AI. And it's still the same rule. Still the same rule of thumb. You bring people in early on. You let them have a voice. You understand what everyone's role is, and you understand that allows people to understand what their role is going to be in the future, and that allows them to be part of the process and help in the process. The worst thing you can do is just bring in, and I've seen this done, you bring in some people and they're like, here's the new workflow, here's the way it's going to be, here's how you're going to use AI. You don't give anybody at the company any agency, and now you have 100 people fighting you instead of 100 people working with you.
Yeah. So with that said, what kind of signals should leadership be looking at or watching when teams are starting to shut down around AI?
The number one signal when people are starting to shut down around AI is, one, they're not asking questions. Because when you start using AI, there should be a lot of questions, and they start having conversations. There should be a lot of conversations because there's a whole lot to figure out. Two, a lot of those questions should be around things like the fringe areas of uses. When you start to use AI for the first time in the company, you're going to be solving for the main use cases, the 80% use cases. But as you do those, you realize, hey, there's a fringe use case. Hey, for this client or for this product, here's an outlier case. What's AI in this case? Oh, we're using this data in AI. Is this data safe to use in AI? Those are the normal questions that pop up. When people stop asking those questions, it means that they're just shutting down and they're just trying to go through the numbers.
All these things that we're talking about around culture and then, some of the previous subjects that we had in our podcast, it keeps going back to one of the things you said today. You have to have a mentor. You have to have someone that you can call on that is an expert in not only the AI field, but also understands how your region functions to be able to bounce these ideas off of. So for my next question, if I was a CMO or a creative lead or someone with managing a small team, how would I introduce AI?
Yeah, first of all, it's like I said, it's kind of like going to the gym. You have two choices. You can go to the gym alone, and most people who go to the gym alone tend to stop going to the gym after 3 or 4 sessions. Or you can have you can get your gym trainer, you can get your gym buddy. And those are the people who are there not just to show you how to use it, but to help you evolve in using it and how to help you grow in using it. And then eventually, after enough of that, you become, a person at the gym who basically you're ripped, you're off to the races. And it's the same way with AI. You have that person who works with you, us for an example, who understand your need and helps you develop in the ways that you need to for yourself, the team, and the company. And that's what you really need to create, is that having that, just not that mentor, but that person who's there to help you see the longer vision and develop into it with AI and how to use AI to develop that vision.
I imagine that, as much as I know personally about AI, every time I've talked to you, and this is how we got here, about, the steps that I'm taking, you've always brought in another piece of insight that has either galvanized my space and the way I thought about where I'm at, or gave me a completely new perspective. And maybe even I needed to make a pivot on the direction that I was going. So personally, it's super valuable. But on an enterprise level, what is that difference for you? What does that look like?
It really boils down to one thing: how a person starts the conversation, or how a company starts the conversation, and what the first things they do is. What we like to do is we like to start the conversation by just listening, by understanding, because no transformation, no company is the same, and no use case for AI is exactly the same. If that was the case, then just go out and pay your $20 a month and get ChatGPT and you're off to the races. But as most companies found out, that doesn't work. You start by listening. Instead of telling people what they should be doing, you understand what they want to achieve. Then you start having the conversation around how they can do it. One of the things that we do is, the first thing that we do is, we don't start off with a big project. We start off with a small scope of onboarding and understanding, because we may start the conversation around AI, but we often find out that, for example, the real problem has nothing to do with AI, but it has to do with a lack of vision and goals. And without a lack of vision and goals, you can't implement AI properly. So then that's a whole different conversation. Or the conversation might be really, hey, here's one team that needs to use AI. Here's where we start, and here's how we can start working with you in that. And then we bring in a set of tools so everybody involved can assess the maturity model of both themselves, the team, and the company in AI. And then, for example, if you have a team of 5 people, we'll do this. We'll send out the forms, and so a person we'll send out the assessment so a person can assess themselves and the team. So you get your 5 different perspectives. And then you know who's strong, who's not strong. You'll know which team members and which jobs in the team can really benefit from AI from the point of view of the people doing the job, not from the point of view of the person like me who's coming in and saying, this is what you should do. Because there's no one size fits all. You have to understand. You have to understand how it can be done and what you want to do.
By your definition, it is actually almost more difficult for that person in the company that usually has a certain set of tasks that they've been given to understand how that implements to everyone else's tasks within the company. They can only come from that perspective, and a lot of times don't have the bandwidth to step outside of their own role and then implement that into everyone else's tasks. So for us, we've developed for culture specifically 4 levers to define culture, which is the first adoption and transparency. The second one is context, then collaboration and support. So let's go ahead and start breaking those down.
Yeah, I mean, adoption and transparency. It all starts there. If you don't have transparency in the process, you're not going to have adoption.
Absolutely.
That's all I was going to say is, and you're not going to get adoption without transparency if you don't have a culture that is open to it. Like I said, you can bring that culture in, or you can already have that culture in place, but you need to have that culture.
So this is when we get into our ideology drop, where the culture, we have adoption first framework. And in this framework, we have 4 levels for it. We start with transparency before tools, where we ask what changes, why it matters, and why not automate. Then we go into context beats control. And then from there, we go into co-pilot the rollout, not the app, but the actual meaning of the word co-pilot. And then lastly, support isn't optional, it's strategy. So let's talk a little bit about transparency before tools.
Yeah, and that last thing you hit on is the key. What's not to be automated? When you're doing any type of transformation, whether it be AI or not, but particularly in the AI world, what you want to do is you want to follow I forgot the Latin for it, but the doctor motto of do no harm. It's really easy to go in and create mass efficiencies with AI and to have things done so quickly. It's really easy for that to create mass efficiencies, but create a bad product. For that to lessen the output and make everyone's job actually harder. And now at the end of the day, you have everybody doing twice the work as they were before AI, because you have this great AI process that doesn't really get the job done right. And so now everybody goes back and does it again twice.
Yeah. I think about David Allen's book, Getting Things Done. you have to first get everything on the table, like everything. And that process might feel longer than expected, but it actually will shorten the runtime for all the other processes to get in place.
Yeah. So that's like, and we talked on this before, but the number one thing is transparency and goals. And goals can be this wide, broad concept. Hey, our goal is to increase revenue in Q3 by 10, 15%. Or the goal could be small and to team level. Our goal is to be able to ship 3 products, three new code bases or 3 new products in 1 month. Or the goal might be on the personal level, where my goal is to be able to do, a marketing report a week that used to take me a month to do. But it's really clear to have those goals, what you want to achieve, and then you can create the process that uses that paired perspective and allows AI to help the person to achieve the goal. Because it's really important to understand, AI doesn't achieve the goal. It's the person that is using AI that achieves the goal.
And that brings us into our second level, which is context-based control. Instead of forcing tools into the process, you invite teams into the conversation about AI and what it should and should not do from all levels. So not just on the C-suite level, but also going all the way down the gambit.
Right. Context is king. And the context of how to use AI and even use cases for AI changes by the role in the company. For example, the context for an account executive in a marketing company is very different than the context for a PM, which is very different than the context for a creative. A AI tool that helps with grammar check and rewrite and reword things for an AE might be a godsend, but for the creative, it might cause big problems because the context of the roles are different.
Yeah.
So that's what's important to understand, that it's not one size fits all for all teams. It's how to integrate and create the right solution, or create the umbrella solution that creates the framework that all teams can work within, and then creating the context for each team to be successful with AI.
By making sure that you get the context for all of those roles, that is going to invite a shared ownership. And through shared ownership, you're going to have less resentment. If you're only focused on the creatives or the PMs or the C-suite, then someone's going to feel left out, and someone's going to have a little resentment for having to be forced to use a tool that may not be the best for them. That goes into our third level, which is co-pilot the rollout.
And I like to use the phrase a slow out instead of a rollout.
I love a slow out.
And that's why I'm going to tell you a real use case story.
Okay.
There was an agency that I was helping out rolling out AI. And I was working with the marketing team in the agency, particularly the influencer marketing teams, to create reporting solutions and such. They brought in a different group of people to do a CRM AI rollout. And what happened was the CRM team's rollout, what they did is they basically wanted to fast track it. They were like, we're gonna get this in and out, and we're gonna be done in 3 weeks, which sounded great. But what they did is they simply set up the programs, they set up AI to work, they set up the default cases of AI, and they paid their bills, they charged, and it looked great on the outset. Nobody could use it. But then what we did is we did what I call the slow out. Instead of 3 weeks, it took us 3 months. But in the end of the first 3, we did in sprints. In the first 3 weeks, we had goals, and there was value. And we knew we're going to achieve this value and these goals to the company. Then the next 3 weeks, we had a different set of goals. Within the first 3 weeks, the value of my slow out was greater than the quick rollout. Then the second 3 weeks, it was double the value. And that was the idea. And in each case, the plan that started the 3 weeks and what was executed at the end changed slightly. Why? Because what you were just talking about, everybody had agency. Everybody had a voice. Everybody saw the tweaks that they could start making when they started using it in that perspective from their jobs and the teams, and we were able to make adjustments in real time slowly. So by the time that we got to the end of the project, not only was it achieving the goals, but it was far exceeding the goals. And it is still a program they're using a year and a half later as we rolled it out because it was what they needed in the end.
I love the way you explained it because the slow out could be misconstrued as you taking your time, hoarding these findings until you get the perfect results. And by the time you roll out the result, it's actually too late. What you were saying is it's not just about rolling something out really quickly and then you're done. It's the ideation. Then you go back in and you look at that, what the results of that is, and then you go back and you do that circle. We talked about in one of our podcasts. I'm actually got to look back at one of our modules that we created because you just called it out.
Yeah, there's an old song my grandmother used to sing me that this reminds me of.
Yeah.
It goes, inch by inch, row by row, going to make this garden grow.
So this actually reminds me of what we talked about in episode 2 when we talked about execution, acceleration, insight. So your slow out is a version of you come in, you understand exactly what's happening, you roll out whatever with the information you have, then you go into that acceleration mode and you push the rollout, you find out how that worked out in the insight version, and then every 3 weeks you were rinsing and repeating that cycle.
Yeah, and that every 3 weeks, that's dependent upon the company.
It does.
You can make it every week. It could be every month. It depends upon the scope and what you're trying to achieve. But like as you said, the key there is you're not saying, this is the solution, we're going to implement and we're done. We're going to say, here's the map to reach your goals, and here's how we're going to, in this cadence, meet the milestones on that map.
That brings us to our 4th layer, which is support isn't optional, it's strategy. So through that strategy, you're going to have just-in-time tutorials, you'll have real-time feedback channels, clear paths to understand what went wrong and then how to actually fix it, which goes to your slow out.
Right. And look, unless you're under a rock in the AI world, then you know things change rapidly. In 3 weeks, we had MCP rollout, in which you can connect Claude to almost any application. Then you had MCPs roll back some, and half of those connections went down. You need to be an adaptive strategy for those. So when these changes happen, when new models happen, when all these things get rolled out and they get rolled back again, even ChatGPT rolled back a model a month ago.
Yeah.
You need to be able to adapt to it and make sure that they don't break your system, that your system is adaptable for that, or your system is adapting to that.
So here's the move for this week. Ask your team one question. What is your biggest fear or friction on AI at work? Just listen, don't correct them, don't sell them. Just listen to exactly what your team has to say. And that's where the real shift starts.
Down below, we have the link for an assessment. It's a quick assessment, takes maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Great for somebody working on a team of 1 to a team of 20. And it's just a quick way to go through it, and it tells you where you're at in adapting AI and where you're at in your AI journey.
That's exactly right. Next week, we're going to be talking about prompt engineering is dead. Why framing, not formatting, is the future of AI conversation. Thank you for watching Process of Elimination.